How you doing, everybody? It's Tori Sims here with Sims Legacy Investing, and I'm here to drop some more gems to you guys when it comes to having real estate. Okay, so if you really like content like this, make sure you like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, and comment down below what you might want to hear. Okay, because we're all about helping you guys get to the next level, and we're all about focusing on faith, family, and finances. Okay, so without further ado, today's topic we're really going to be talking about stay basically having long-term rentals compared to having short-term rentals. So instead of you doing Airbnbs and you having a long-term tenant type of relationship with your property, right? So we want to pretty much dive into both of those and see which one kind of makes sense for you. All right. So now Airbnbs is going to require you a lot more work, right? You're gonna get a lot more cash flow for what you're doing, right? Because you're gonna be pretty much renting on a week-to-week basis or month-to-month basis, right? Compared to having a long-term tenant who's going to be there a year at a time type lease, maybe even 2 years, right? So it's more stability when it comes to you having a long-term tenant, but you can typically charge a lot more with Airbnb, almost 2 times, even 3 times what you normally get on when it comes to a monthly basis when it comes to having Airbnb. Now the stipulation with that is Airbnb is this: you got to check the laws before you purchase it. Okay, because not every single city is in demand. Well, really, most cities are in demand, but not every single city is going to allow you to really kind of operate the way you want to. Not a whole lot of free will there. Okay, you got the HOAs, you got the condominium people, you got your neighbors mouthing off about you. There's so many different situations where people will actually want pretty much have their hand and their say in what you're doing with your particular property. Now, if you own it's like a short term rental, like a house that's like single family home where it's like separated from other people, then they ain't really got a whole bunch of leeway. But if you're like in a condo type setting or an apartment building type setting, like a timeshare or something like that, then you can. There's some problems, some complication that comes with that. All right, okay, so that's something to be aware of when you want to choose when you want to be. So when it comes to short-term rentals, man, the reason why it costs a lot more and it's going to require you a lot more work is because you got to deal with it being furnished every single time that you rent out to someone. Got to be cleaned up, so you got to have a cleaning crew, right? You got to have you need to have mechanical locks on it or digital locks, I would say, if you want to kind of streamline it to the best of your abilities, right? And there's some locks that you can put on your door that the code changes every single time someone uses it. So you can use the code to unlock your door instead of the key, which is really, really key for you not always going to be there. Someone misplacing the keys or losing the lockbox or whatever the case may be. Just every time you got a new person going to go stay inside there, just change the codes, right? And that makes it a lot more easier for you. But the flip side of that is going to be costly. You if you don't want to be doing the cleaning yourself, or the one changing the codes all the time yourself, or the one changing the sheets, right? Because it's pretty much running a hotel inside of a home, right? Basically what you're doing. If you don't want all that type of maintenance, then you can hire a property manager for that. But they're typically going to take anywhere from 15 to 25% of your monthly income, right? Each time. So you want to take that into consideration. Whereas if you were to do a long-term rental, like a house or a long-term tenant who's been there for a year or so, they're typically taking 8 to 10%. Typically 10% for these property managers I've been seeing, right? So you have a little more cash flow there. Also with the long-term rentals, you don't have to furnish it, right? The tenant's gonna come in, they're gonna furnish it themselves, right? They're gonna want to make it homey in a sense, right? I mean, as long as they ain't no bum, right? As long as they ain't no bum, they'll take care of your property, right? They'll typically want to make it take care of it as much as they want to move in their own place, right? That's what you got the property manager to properly screen them out to make sure they're a good tenant. Looking at their history and who they lived at before and their credit score and all the 9 yards, right? The property manager will handle that portion of it. So that's something to consider. So it's a lot more cheaper to have a long-term rental on the upfront cost because you don't have to furnish it, right? You don't have to clean it. Well, you got to clean it once, but it's not every single week, in rotation, right? The tenant typically going to be there, and you typically sometimes you kind of set it, forget it, right? Once they move in once, you don't have to hear about them for until maybe you got to check on to make sure rent was paid on time, right? As long as the manager take care of that, then you're good to go. But typically you set it, forget it, just receive your check every single month. All right, now when it comes to scaling that, right? Airbnbs, there's lenders out there who will take the Airbnb profit that you're making. But typically lenders who's gonna do, if you want to do a cash out, get your equity out there, DSCR loan, right? They want to see a lease contract for a year point of time, right? So because they know it's a steady check coming. They will use that income. There are some lenders, very few, But there are some landlords that will use a DSCR, will give you a DSCR on the Airbnb rentals, right? But you just got to find those. So that's the goal with that. Now you're making more, so obviously you're able to pull more equity out of the property as long as it's worth that much. But it's not the same if you was doing like a long-term tenant. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Some websites that you can go to when it comes to listing out the Airbnb, because Airbnb is as long as you keep it next to hotels, near hospitals, right, for travel nurses and people like that, people who are always going in and out of the place, of the state or the city that you're in. Okay, that's what makes you. You got to pick your market. Okay, if you're in a very rural area where there's not a whole lot of things going on, you in the outskirts of Mississippi. You know what I mean? It's like still holding up random flags you don't want to know all about. Like, yeah, the Airbnb won't thrive there, okay? Because not a lot of people visiting there, right? So you got to choose your market wisely based off where you at. If you're in the big city, like if you're in Atlanta, if you're in like Miami or something like that, like or just a decent sized city, they got, I would say, at least 70,000 plus people there going in and out on a consistent basis. They got a bunch of events going on, right? Then those are ideal markets for Airbnb because you constantly got people traveling back and forth. So they're gonna need a place to stay short term, right? Some nurses, they stay month to month. Their contract isn't always long term. Sometimes their contract is just for a few months, or just or even less than that. So you always want to pretty much evaluate what type of market you in, right? So on websites to list your property once you get it, if you were to go to Airbnb, is HelloLanding.com, there's FurnaceFinder.com, there's HotPass.com, there's CozyCozy.com. It's not just Airbnb, okay? Your property can be on Airbnb.com, but there's other places you can list it on for the same type of results, okay? So keep that in mind as well. So there's a lot of cash involved when it comes to a lot of profitability involved when you go in the Airbnb route, but the safe and secure right, and that's a lot of generations of wealth that's been built on, is the long-term route when it comes to short-term rentals. Okay, and obviously they cost less to get things going, and they're easier to kind of dictate what your profitability is going to be. All right, so all in all, guys, I would like to say that if you are just not starting off, if you're just starting out, you just kind of get things going, your first rental, I would say it'd be smart to take your long-term rental to get things going. Okay, maybe even house hack it. Right, get you a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, and then convert the garage into another bedroom to get some more income. Something like that, a lot easier to do than to try to run a whole concierge business with an Airbnb. Okay, it's a lot to go into it, a lot of work that goes into it, and it is an amazing model. And it's definitely it's sexy to the majority, right? But you gotta be strategic, you gotta be savvy with what you're doing if you want to jump into that ball game. Okay, so start off with the short-term rental. It's what my advice do. I would definitely coach my clients to do. Start off with those, and after you got a few, right, at least 2 or 3, then you can jump into the Airbnb, right, and make sure the market is right, because you know what the offset would be. Okay, and if you're really savvy, you really want to be savvy about it, make it so that your profits are both ways. So you can start the property off as a long-term rental. Okay, and then once you see that you're making at least $500 a month off of that, you're doing okay with that. Then, and you're close to a hospital, you're close to these areas that's events. Okay, now you can test the waters out after the lease is over. Now test it out on a market as a short-term rental, Airbnb or whatever case we want to say. Right, try that for for 6 months and see what your profits look like. I mean, on average, your Airbnb is making 3 times what your monthly rent would be for a long term. So if you give it 6 months and you're not seeing that type of return with the property wet, then go take your butt right back down the long term and just, stack it that way. Okay, so hope that helps, guys. We're always here to kind of educate you guys and make sure you're on the right path when it comes to building your wealth. And just look forward to hearing from you guys. Make sure you tap in. So talk to you soon.